Mr. President.
Are we ready to begin?
1 minute.
1 minute. Yeah. You got your phone out. 15 seconds? Who do I believe?
Him.
All right, I'm starting anyway. We'll go ahead and call it 2:30.
2:30.
It's 2:30. All right, all you people out there in TV land. Welcome to the Board of Directors, Indian Wells Valley Water District Finance Committee. Regular meeting on Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024, 2:30 p.m. And I'll officially call the meeting to order. Are there any comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to fraud risk discussion.
Nothing to report.
That's always good news. Thank you. Then for number 4, GA imported water costs. Do you have anything to further add to that?
Only to repeat that I have once again offered to anybody, essentially anybody that would like to come in and discuss our cost study, to come in, that we have time. We are willing to educate them. We are willing to listen to whatever comments they have. We want that cost study to be the definitive cost study, that is accepted by all parties involved. And so no one has taken us up on our offer, which is unfortunate because there's a lot of stake here. And the other thing I'll say is that ultimately you need to have a really solid cost study if we're ever to consider any alternatives to the pipeline, because alternatives will be judged on their relative costs.
Did the city council reiterate that how they had found, I think the word was 5 bad assumptions in the first 3 pages? They say anything about that?
They keep saying that, and I keep saying, well, let's sit down and tell me what those are. And nobody ever picks up the phone, and nobody ever sort of, comes and actually wants to have a real discussion about it. Our consultant, Clean Energy Capital, they are, they're aware, and they're standing by so that they can provide their expertise. We recognize that nothing is perfect. We truly want to be cooperative and find out what the real cost is.
And they do understand that the basis for all the numbers was the numbers provided by the GA's engineering group.
Yeah, and we took their
Yeah.
$100 million cost of pipeline, subtracted the $150 million, which they got $50 million of, and still, once, I think it boils down to this. They gave a good cost to build a pipeline that has no water in it and isn't connected to our facilities, and it doesn't pump water to our system. But, so we decided to figure out what it would cost our customers, because if our customer is going to use it, they have to have water flowing through the pipeline, and they have to pay AVEC, and they have to, modify our system so we can pump all this water around. And, we just want a complete estimate of what it's going to cost citizens in the valley.
My take on it is I don't think they want the community to know. I honestly don't. I think that when the actual numbers come out and the community sees it, which they are with us, then they're going to have a hard way defending this pipeline anyway. So I don't think they want it to come out. Otherwise, it would have come out a long time ago.
So the only other, thank you for your professionalism in addressing this issue, you and the rest of the staff. The only other possible explanation is that there's gross incompetence. Because the first thing you're going to want is to know how much it's going to cost before you start getting money and borrowing money and talking about how great it's going to be. Any decently run project, any qualified project manager knows that right up front. And the fact that they didn't do it is alarming, and it supports President Kaczynski's contention that they perhaps don't want people to know what the real cost is till it's too late. It's very disappointing. And if it's the fact that they just don't know what they're doing and they don't know how to run a project, then I have some concerns about their ability to execute the project. So it's,
Did they make any?
Good.
I'm sorry.
no, I'm okay.
Did they make any comments about this WRDA, this 50 million, and it hasn't been rewarded yet, and how they're going to pay for it, or we're going to come up with the 12 point? Did they talk about the WRDA grant at all?
Only to claim that the rest of the $100 million is coming guaranteed, despite the fact that Congress actually has to approve any additional funding. And it's not unrealistic to say they might. That is a part of the process, but you can't guarantee anything that hasn't been signed by the president, and the bill hasn't been reconciled. There's a $5 million in one, there's 50 million in the other. We expect it'll be 50 million, but you got to reconcile it and get it signed by the president for it to be real. And then you can't go around claiming that we automatically, because we got 50 million, we're going to get another 100 million, because those all those extra dollars have to again go through Congress every time, and you have to do the matching funds every time. And there is a concern about how many times are you going to go to this Prop 218 and I need 12.5 million now, and I need 12.5 million 2 years from now, I need 12.5 million for, the public, at some point, they're going to go, when does this endless, handout, the 218 sort of end?
So did they talk about that at all? I mean, did they?
Well,
in the meeting?
we talk about that.
Oh, did they? And they feel pretty confident they got all of it. Okay, that's all.
They exude confidence. I don't know.
Oh,
It occurs to me that, Mr. President, there might be a third reason for this haphazard manner in which they have approached this entire project, and that is that they never intended to get this far with it. The whole purpose of it was to put the fee into place, and that demands from the public to understand what the pipeline was going to look like and where it was going to run is they're answering those demands as they come in, and they're not really serious about the pipeline.
Did you get a chance to read the information that was sent from the DI? Basically, the DI had, I think Schmidt did an article and they attached a letter that was written by the bunch to it. And one thing that really stood out to me is where Jeff Halsey, is that his name with Stetson? That he made the comment back in 2022 that we had to have a fee. The reason we picked the pipeline, we had to have a feasible project in order to get the grants. So that implies to me that they picked anything they could that they can consider feasible to start getting the money. And that one little line, people need to pick that out and say, why was that the only, why was that the only one that you had to go for a grant for? And when you read that, it's because, yeah,
It's embarrassing.
it's embarrassing.
Clearly, their premise is based on the 7650 and no other project can get you there. But now we have the court having made a ruling that we will have a safe yield trial. And that safe yield trial might result in a different safe yield, which opens up alternatives to the pipeline that need to be considered in NEPA, CEQA, and other regulatory processes. That's how it works.
One last thing, and then we'll move on, is of course, we made the announcement after a closed session. The last time that the board had, a special closed session, had approved the release of the safe yield paper. And of course, you got people, clamoring for that now. Did they ask about that at the meeting? And if so, where did you tell them they can find it on the website?
They did not ask.
They did not ask.
Not-
When can we find it on the website? That's the next question. Because I'm getting asked.
As of last week, I thought it was supposed to be out this week, but I can't. It's in the hands of the lawyers and our handy lawyers. It's got to sign a bunch of pieces of paper to get it done. That's where it's at.
Give me the,
Engineer 1 and 2 has a comment.
Oh, yeah.
yes.
I
Yeah.
was on the phone with Jim about
Okay.
another item this morning and he mentioned tomorrow.
Okay, 'cause I thought they'd said Wednesday or Thursday, and that's what I'm looking
So
for.
it'll be Wednesday.
And that's what I'm telling people.
Yeah.
And they can go to our website to find it, correct?
Yes, we'll have. it on our
Under,
website.
is it under the adjudication portion or is it under something else? Because a lot of people can't find their way around that.
I don't know. I don't put it on there. I imagine they get Providence to do it. I don't know. Or
It would
or
almost
Lauren
certainly
does
be
it.
under the adjudication.
But yeah, it would be under adjudication. That's
And
the
you
only
can, it
place to
can
make
be
it.
a side banner too announcing it or something that's
Sure.
there so people can find it. Okay, I'm surprised they didn't bring it up because that's been one of their points of contention. Okay, all right. Anything else on imported water costs or GA's project? Hearing none. Second quarter investment reports. Ty?
All right, so we got a table in front of you. This is for the quarter ended June 2024. And this just shows where our cash is currently housed, both unrestricted and restricted. So we have unrestricted of 12 million and restricted of 8.1 million for a total of 20,306,000.
Okay.
Now, remember, 7.5 of this is bond funds for the project,
Right.
as well as another 3 million from the state for our project. So take out 10 million and that's what you're left with.
Where's the state money? Unrestricted or restricted?
It probably should be unrestricted, but it's currently in the miscellaneous capital fund, the 3
Okay.
million.
All right,
So
all right,
I'm gonna move that number over.
all right.
I'll move,
Oh, I see it. Yeah.
yeah, so I'll move it over into the restricted area. I missed that one.
Alternate water
We
supply.
reused a fund we already had over in the county, people to house it, so we could track it separately.
So which of the reserves are giving you consternation that we need to get back to?
You know, I'd like to see that, where is it? The capital, one of the capital ones.
Capital improvement replacement? That's-
Yes, that's the one where we had the goal of, it was about 10.5 million.
Okay,
enough
that's
to-
way low, okay.
Yeah, enough to replace, a well.
Right.
A tank and a booster station. And of course, with inflation, I'm sure that number should be higher than 10.5,
Yeah.
but
And then there's this sort of time frame that we talk about, like, is that the emergency reserve? You talk about?
Is that the 90 days operating costs?
no, the 90, well, we've got 6 months operating reserve.
6
in the-
months, I'm sorry.
in The emergency reserve there, the 3.3 million.
Is that enough? Now with all the
Um,
costs and everything else?
That's enough for operations.
Yeah.
If you're not doing anything outside of operations, that would cover it.
Okay. I guess what I'm asking is that as we move into the new budget cycle, or at least for looking at new rates, that we take into account where these reserves need to be.
Right, and we modify that emergency reserve with every budget to meet the 6 month criteria.
Yeah,
And
bas-
that 6 months is set generally by the board, is that correct? Like what they want?
Yeah, that's in the policy, yeah.
So if you
And-
guys feel it should be 8 months or 9 months, that's at your discretion.
Well, I think that I like the numbers where they are and time-wise, but as far as dollars amount, those need to be looked at very closely based on the cost of everything these days.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I think,
Everything from fuel to insurances to tax, everything. And so all that I would see it was becoming inflated. Okay.
Okay.
And let's see. Now, if there's now some of this money that's being held by the county, do we get a return on that investment from?
We
the-
do, yeah.
And is that on here or is that show up somewhere else?
When we get the interest earnings, it shows up in here.
Oh, it
So
goes
this
right-
Includes any interest.
It goes
earnings.
right, includes any interest. What kind of interest rate they paying now?
It's, man, it was pretty good. I want to say it was almost 2%.
I'm gonna say it should be 2 or 3% based on
Yeah.
where the Fed rate is.
Yeah, it's better than what we're getting in Leif, so we kept it over there.
I think in my money market, I'm getting 4.5. You want to move it over there for a while?
Yeah, might need
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any questions, David? All right. Any more comments, Ty, on that?
No, that's it.
All right. The financial statement for August 31st, 2024. Of course, that's preliminary.
Okay, so we're through 2 months. We have revenues of 2.5 million, which is 119,000 over budget, but keep in mind, looking at total water sales, we're down 241,000. As far as expenditures, we're at 2.7 million, which is just over 500,000 below budget. Our net right now is a negative 211,000, which is 685,000 better than budget. To date, capital expenditures, 2.1 million, debt service principal, 185,000, and total paid in cash to the GSA to date, $15,184,092.
Yeah, that number always gags me. Ugh. Wonder how much water they bought for that 12 million.
it's
Is-
probably measurable in 8-ounce cups.
Yeah. Has everything been reconciled for the beginning of the fiscal year? Like, from the last fiscal year to this one, is everything reconciled now?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe we've got
Okay.
everything that would hit here.
Well, we gotta get a campaign of selling water. It's just all, basically this drop has got to be from people just still conserving, not using.
Yeah, we're still seeing some conservation. We actually went up in pumping for July, so we may see some sort of downturn in August.
It was a pretty brutal July temperature
Yeah.
wise, and not so bad in August. Not that I would know.
The summer's been pretty brutal.
But we had a payment to the GA it was just over $600,000
Mhm.
for replenishment fee for
That's a high one, yeah.
July. So,
Good, they can use that to pay their lawyers. I guess, I didn't say that. They could transfer it into their other fund. All right.
I guess to go along with this, we've got a little presentation just on the state of the budget.
yeah, let me give just some background. So I'm new. I wanted to go through and do a thorough scrub, make sure that we are looking out into the future to make sure we're taking care of our capital projects and whatnot. And so what we've done is we've gone through the budget and we have a couple handouts for you and we're going to sort of walk you through some numbers and we're going to show you like, these are the must pay bills first. And Ty's going to take a shot at that. And here's the things where we have optional expenses that you guys can impact. Cause there's a lot of, as you understand, you can sort of impact anything, but you're probably not going to tell us stop paying for insurance. So you're going to see things like that. And then we're going to recuse ourselves and talk a little more about the capital budget and what we project over the next 5 to 10 years and how much that works out to annually. And we're going to turn those numbers over and look at them and ultimately compare that to our revenue and see if anything needs to be done. Yeah, if you wanted to come over here, it'd be easier for you to see.
Too stubborn to move.
Okay.
He needs to move that TV into that corner. Can you do that right now? I'll do it right now.
Okay. So Ty, you're up.
Yeah, so our analysis, of course, started with what do we have to pay? You know, where are we kind of set? Looking through the different line items, you know, we've got utility and services, not much we can do about that. Insurance is insurance. Employee pay and benefits, this is your staff at this point. Office supplies and ongoing services, there may be a couple in there if you wanted to look at, but for the most part, it's pretty low number dollars, but necessary for the functioning of the office. Maintenance activities to keep the system working. You got your chemicals, you got your maintenance of buildings, you've got things like that, which if you put them off, just could be catastrophic, or, you know, deferred maintenance only gets more expensive. Vehicles and equipment maintenance, we got to keep what we have in good working order to be able to perform our duties. Reports and regulatory compliance, there's no getting around those. We will be passing out a budget sheet, and you'll see what's highlighted in green is pretty much set. There's not a whole lot of wiggle room you can do in there. The other areas that you can look at is legal and consulting fees. How much do we want to do and to what extent? New equipment and vehicle purchases. You know, we've been putting off quite a bit of this new equipment just to make the bottom line. Additional staff, we had talked about some additional areas we wanted to pursue to kind of bring work in-house. Those are, of course, they're on hold at this point because we don't have the funding for them. And then there's other miscellaneous non-operational expenditures. Things like conservation type.
Yeah, there was a question that came up about the billboard signs.
Yeah.
They're $7,000 or $8,000 a year. Do we really want billboard signs? Do we want to pay that bill? They're fairly
Right.
small numbers, but there's certainly things we could look at. We're in the process of looking at getting new signs put up, and so, you know, that question came up. So there are a lot of little things, but the really the big numbers, you know, are the
Yeah,
ones that have been mentioned.
you'll see in the spreadsheet where it's probably 90% of the accounts are just the numbers are the numbers. There's not much you can do to change them. So our capital improvement program has two major components. We've got what's cash funded, and then we have what's bond or grant funded. The grant funding doesn't impact your overall rates other than lowering costs or spreading out the costs. The loans are what spread out the costs, and it has to be repaid. When you set up the loan or the bond financing, you do have a certain threshold you have to meet with your debt to income ratio, debt service coverage, to make sure that you're covering more than you have enough income to pay your debts.
And so one of the things that leads us to is our ability to borrow more money should we need it is somewhat limited at this point in time. So it's something that you need to know, that we can't just go out and borrow another $5 million to do Project X. This relates to why we think maybe having an in-house construction crew at some point in the cost trade-off in the coming years might be something that's worth exploring. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but at some point we think that there's a cost benefit to. There's a lot of projects that are within sort of the scope, similar to what we're doing out in Rademacher, where we're going to put in a couple thousand feet of pipe and connect some people up. So we want to look at those and say, how does that fit into our long-range plan?
The fact that we don't have much more room to borrow money is something that the board is aware of. And one of the reasons why We told the groundwater authority no when they asked us to borrow $30 million to support their operations.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Imagine what we could not have done.
Right.
The tank projects we did, the pump stations, the
The Northwest
Innisfern, the North,
transmission line.
none of those things would have been possible.
That's right.
So I mean, we're just talking about basic, must-dos for the system and there's, so we're, those were wise decisions.
Revenue funded projects. We just passed the CIP for the 24-25 budget year. It looks relatively high. I think somewhere around 9 million, but a lot of that was grant and bond funded. In fact, we only had about $500,000 left to do actual capital projects, maintenance. Our goal, looking forward, we kind of rearranged some things on the CIP schedule is to maintain a kind of a level capital requirement for 10, 15 years. And to meet that and get the projects done that we need to, it's about 2.5 to 4 million per year. Of course, the board has discretion over these projects.
And I think David understands this, that there was an initial mad rush when we said, what projects do you need to do? And everybody shoved them into the first year and, the first year had to, a gazillion dollars worth, and then there was nothing in the next 10 years. And we went through a whole process of leveling that out and spreading it out and saying like, what is a reasonable budget year to year so that we get to a sustainable level where we're not high one year, low the next year. So
Cost, schedule, and manpower, and you have to fit your
Yeah, so
haves
you-
and must-dos.
you have a lot of
into that list.
experience with that. So we've already gone through the phase one and we expect you guys will help us refine it.
Yeah, we were just talking in the last meeting how we had both the Springer line and then the Northwest transmission line scheduled for this
Yep.
fiscal year. We're not gonna make it with the Springer line. We just
didn't
don't have the
think so.
manpower to get there, so it's pushing
We're
off
trying
till
to-
next
It
year.
has to be done. It's certainly right, I think, in my opinion, right after the Northwest transmission line,
Right.
because that's
Yep.
we've already experienced leaks, I could describe that as a leak. It was a rupture
Yeah,
a couple of years ago. We get to address it, but we can't do it this year.
yeah, we'll start on it.
Due next.
We'll get the design going, but the construction, of course, we'll have to wait.
So this is where you're going to prioritize your projects by the level of risk.
Yeah.
And that's that's the next riskiest project that has to be done.
Yep.
So these are some of the projects for this fiscal year that, the ones that are grant and loan funded are of course, the Northwest transmission line, and then next year's the Springer line. And then some of the major updates that we need for, well sites, mag starters, well 35 generator slab. The old gateway tank needs a recoat. And we have, new service installations. That's a placeholder, the fire hydrants, that's an annual thing for new fire hydrants. And then Meter Shop has the meter replacements that they're trying to replace the system and get on a schedule for, I believe, a 20-year
That's-
cycle.
That's another important project because that revenue is directly related to the performance of the meters.
Yeah, might want to specify that the old gateway tank, it's the interior, it's not online at all because the interior coating is delaminating, so it needs to be replaced.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
about,
So it's not in service.
No,
no, it's not surface, and there's about, not quite a quarter, maybe a third of the wall of the tank has delaminated.
Okay.
There are some significant IT replacements that need to happen. Some upgrades and software for security issues. I'm sure George can speak to the groundwater model and what we spent and what we plan to spend in the next coming year.
Hopefully we get that done. That's in the budget. So one of the things that's really, so our total CIP, for this year that we approved in our budget, and you take out the grants, loan and the groundwater money, we only had $418,000. And what we think is we probably need, year to year, closer to 2.5 or 3.5 to 4 million. And so this is going to lead us down a path of some tough decisions that need to be made because we feel that CIP needs to probably be increased at some point in time so that we can accommodate all these, the tank that we're talking about. And I think, is this the point where we are going to, nope, not here yet? Okay. keep going.
We got this one
Yeah, there you
slide.
go.
This is kind of how we're trying to smooth out the next 10, 15 years. No, less than 15, so 10 years with projects. You'll see 33 and 34 kind of fall off just because we don't know yet what we're going to need at that time. But we've tried to level this out so that we don't have any big spikes.
And 2025 and 26 are highlighted in yellow because there's what, $10 million worth of grants and loans in that money?
Yes, yep.
So, so this is taking, we asked for the wish list of all the different projects and we're gonna get in there and talk about some of them because some of them we don't want to talk about in the public.
Okay.
But we're gonna sort of talk about how we at least looked at the next most urgent projects and then show you a list of what's coming up up till, that 2032, 2033, as we try to build a budget out and look at what we need going forward.
So then this would be the end of this financial statements item. We lumped in the budget part, open session. If we want to look at accounts payable disbursements, then we do future.
Yeah, let me make a
items
couple of
then.
comments
Yeah.
about this. When it comes to these projects that keep this plant running and running properly and also reliable, I myself have been in that position, having to do that. And the worst thing that can happen is when you have some upper management making decisions that they just don't know how it'll affect. So what I'm trying to say here is I totally rely on engineering and operations to make that decision. If you come to us as a board and say, yeah, we got to reline that tank because that's our only backup, because if the other one goes down, this could happen. I believe that. I'm not going to sit here and question it. Or can we drag it out a year? Can we drag it out 2 years? I've been in that position and it's disastrous to start delaying those kind of things. But I do believe that the engineering and operations staff will look hard at these things and say, okay, yeah, we can get 1 more year out of it, but no more than that. So I'm telling you that when these projects come forward, that I, as a board member, are going to rely on your expertise.
Yeah, we have done our best to limp things along as much as we can. So you'll hear it in the closed session, we're gonna
Yeah,
discuss things.
I don't like
big issues,
limping
but-
along. I don't like that. Don't like the idea. Don't want it. We can't have it. And no way.
We don't like it either, but
I know, and I know things gotten tough, but we got to remedy that. And hopefully we're going to do that with
There's
the,
been a significant amount of inflation. There's been some, these things, parts costs have risen dramatically. We've gotten by on equipment that's, we had one tractor that the company says we won't work on anymore. It's not that it's a terrible tractor. They did a great job of maintaining it, but when you can't get anybody to work on it, you have no choice but to go get something new.
when it comes time for, and when the rate study is being done and we're justifying it, that one particular chart you had with the must-haves, the must-dos type of thing, which is insurance and this, it wouldn't hurt to add to that and say, inflationary costs have increased this, boom, 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 boom. Because I look at every one of them, think they're probably 20, 25% right down the line.
Ty, what has
Yeah.
insurance gone up in the past 5 years?
Yeah.
It's like older more
What's that?
insurance costs?
Yeah, the insurance, I think last year we paid 350,000 and it was 500,000 this year.
I mean, so you're telling me in 5 years, it might have been up 60, 70% for
Yeah.
insurance. These things are just killing us.
And because we're going to have the public looking at this, because it's going to go into, public review. I think I think they do understand based on their own costs,
Yeah.
because, our car insurance is going to go up 30, 40%. I think if you put the percentage increase by all of those requirements, that has a big impact on justifying a rate increase. No one likes to do rate increases, but I foresee something happening here. It's pretty good size.
Well, we need to walk carefully because we talk about the impact of inflation on the water district. It's also impacting the people that pay our rates.
That's right.
And raising rates does not necessarily mean increasing income to the water district. It's possible that people become so desperate with all the other expenses that they'll stop using water. We'll have to go and talk about pushing up to will serve, and it's not going to help anybody out. Just a side note,
Right.
restaurants, which use a lot of water, are not just locally, but internationally, are going out of business because they can't sustain the costs that have been accrued over the last 4 years. So we have to walk carefully on this one, and you certainly will have to justify, just as the president recommends, by putting in the percentage increase we've seen. Absolutely have to make that case if we're going to convince the public that there's some sort of a rate adjustment necessary. Otherwise, it's death of 1,000 paper cuts. We're gonna save $7,000 by not having billboards. That's insignificant. And there's not 100 of those things that you can find to make a big enough difference in the budget to save to save our future projects.
Any other comments on
Yes.
this? Because what I'd like to do then is if we want to go on to accounts payable disbursements, so we can approve that.
Please do.
And then we'll retire to
Okay.
closed session. Let's see if I got anything. In it. Anything to point out on here, Ty, that's out of the ordinary?
Not a lot. We got NG for 58,000. That's our yearly.
Yeah, what
um,
were they?
Maintenance of the solar system.
Okay. Is that a year,
Oh,
is that a
Are
yearly?
you guys aware,
It's every year.
are you aware of the big copper theft? 18 strands of our solar got their copper stolen from it.
No.
Yeah, that's gonna be another bill that's gonna show up.
What,
So,
was that insured?
Jason,
No, it's not insured. The NG noticed a loss of production on one of the strings on the 1st of August. Increased loss of production on the 6th of August. And then a third time, finally sent a representative out to the site, I think on the 15th of August. And it was discovered that 18 strings of copper were removed from the site.
That's the copper that ties the panel to panel or whatever, yeah,
Yes.
which is all copper.
Yes.
Which site was it?
1230,
Well, 30?
which is our biggest one.
So
It's
this
the
is-
one that we use for net meter or the integrated metering.
And it's all
So
fenced, correct?
whoever reported this, that.
It is fenced within the fence. So you have the field fencing around it. and
Couple
then you have
Doberman
chain link
pinchers.
fence on the
yeah.
inside.
Who did we report this theft?
I am waiting for the cost from NG. They said it'd take up to 3 weeks to get me the cost for repair and
Okay,
But we
replacement,
reported it.
and then
to-
we'll report to the sheriff.
right. I recommend you look into reporting it to the federal government as well.
Okay.
Since this is a public utility and we're in a time of great concern, I would have the FBI looking into who is stealing this copper and even better, who's buying it from the person that stole it.
That's a good question. I will report it as such.
and we're looking at mitigation measures, electrified fences, cameras, other,
Doberman
Deterrence.
pinchers, junkyard dogs.
you know, I'm not opposed to it.
I know. and You get, nowadays you get sued left and right. Okay, let's
It's,
see.
you know, and I was fortunate enough to be at the Public Lands Roundtable and spoke to some of the BLM Rangers, police. And, you know, this is a fairly common thing. They say a lot of people will drive up and down the 14. They'll drive their truck in, they'll tie it to a piece of copper and drive away with their truck and just rip out what they can and drag it down the highway. It's really insane what people are doing.
I'll suspect you're gonna be seeing that on the recharging stations too for those plug-in lines.
Yeah.
Think
so
about
it's-
that. There's a lot of copper in there, or at least
Yeah.
heavy
I think
duty.
there's a story about that already happening in Oakland or something.
Really?
where-
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I don't see anything out of the usual. There's some high ones on there I would hope we could reduce over the next couple of years, such as lawyers.
Aqua for 72,000.
Yeah, that's our yearly due.
Yeah, that's insurance, right?
No, that's actually our dues.
Oh, our
the
dues.
Membership.
Oh, that's a
Reader's
yearly?
Magazine.
That's a big chunk. I didn't realize it was that much.
Oh, which one?
Oh, 70, I see 72.
Oh,
Oh,
72? No, that is insurance.
No,
That's employee insurance.
okay. Well, how much was the yearly amount? Where'd you spot that, David?
oh, I saw the 72,000. That's what caught my eye.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right.
That one I do need a recommendation on.
Yes, I know. David, would you like to recommend that?
I would like to
we-
recommend that we approve this and recommend that the board of directors in open session approve this as well.
Okay, and I do as well. So we approve accounts payable disbursements. Thank you. All right. So let's do this. Any future agenda items that we need to get on here?
No.
No. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and temporary close the open session at What do you have on your time there?
4.
Oh, 3:04. I see it up there now. 3:04, and we'll adjourn to closed session. And we'll see you after that shortly. Thank you. Am I live? All right, we just returned from closed session. We closed the closed session at 3:46. It's now 3:51. And with that, what's that? There's nothing to report. As I say, according to the requirements of the Brown Act, there's nothing to report. No action was taken. With that, I will close this meeting at 3:52. Thank you, everybody.